Hello and welcome to the Biz Hub. Come on in. Come on in. Good morning. Good morning.
Lovely
good morning.
to see you all coming in this morning.
Good morning, Jenny. Good morning, Joe. Oh, I think this is Joe's first Biz Hub, isn't it?
No, I think she was here last week, weren't you, Joe? Yeah, she was here last week.
Oh, so she's come back for more. Excellent.
It's always good. Hi, Vicky. Hi, Sheila. And
hi, Matt. Hi, Lorna. Morning, Noam.
Lovely. Everybody's piling in really quickly today. This is good. Excitement for the Friday.
Fabulous. Good morning, Sarah. I'm glad that you like my little rhyme in the group this morning. I was feeling in a whimsical mood.
Goodness, it was really quite long. I started reading it and thinking, oh gosh, I haven't got time for all of this, Stu. Come on.
I think it was spending all the time reading them to my kids. Once you've got it, it's like Shakespeare. Once you've got the meter, you can't get rid of it.
Exactly.
Morning, Shayna. Good morning, Sheila. Sheila's in with us, and Matt. Fabulous. Yeah. Oh, everyone's here. Fantastic. I hear Sue. I'm sure she's going to tell us about her little win, but I hear Sue did some kits this week. We'll find out more in a bit.
Lovely.
Ooh, lovely. Good. Lovely. Fabulous.
Right. Well, should we get started, Stu, without further ado?
Good morning, Graham. Yes, and a good morning to you too, sir. Right. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to crack on with the Biz Hub. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Signal Biz Hub, where we come to learn, be inspired, and grow our businesses. All of what I'm going to tell you is either available at signalbizhub.org or via the team. Get in touch, call us, email us. You've got all of our details. Even maybe give us a shout out on WhatsApp. Fantastic. Hope your week's going well. Today is, in a change to our advertised structure, today is a presentation, and we'll hear more about our speaker when Lou introduces her, but it's a member and guest webinar. Don't forget that at 10:30ish we will upgrade everyone to panelists and we'll be all able to see each other's lovely faces and interact. We would ask that you keep your microphone on mute for obvious reasons. We don't want a cacophony and be unable to hear our guest speaker answer your questions. So just remember that, because otherwise I'm going to be, you're on mute. I
tell you what, I'm really enjoying that part of the session now that we've changed it, that we upgrade. Put it in the chat, give us a thumbs up if you're enjoying it as well, because it's really, I'm loving seeing everybody's faces more regularly, because yeah, just the way we've changed it. So yeah, lovely. We're getting some people reacting to that, which is good.
Cool. So we have some guests in the room. Hello, guests. It's lovely to have you with us and joining us. And we know that our guest speaker has invited a couple of people along. Hello to you too. Just run through quick benefits of the Biz Hub. Lou, tell us why people should keep coming back.
Well, I mean, as we have the talks, which are every Friday we have a talk, and another benefit of being part of the Biz Hub is that you can update and use your Biz Hub online profile, logging into the members area. So you've got login access to all the previous talks. You can book and attend weekly events. We've got the mini mastermind, which you can bring your business problems to and talk about, which I know a lot of people who do attend mastermind find that really, really beneficial. We've got some business growth tracking, and we're just actually amending that at the moment. And so watch this space. It's going to be a lot more sort of interactive, the forms. We're creating some online forms, etc. But I think most importantly of all of that, you're going to be part of a like-minded business community, a community where you will be regularly meeting and talking to people who may be going through the same sort of issues or successes. And there are a lot of successes, and there's somebody to talk to about. So it's a real benefit of being part of a business community. Yeah,
absolutely, definitely. So we find that there's quite a lot of chat in the WhatsApp group as well, supporting each other, and that can be invaluable. Just a little boost at the start of the day, or a kind of nudge in the right direction. I've been loving all of the interactions, and keeping up with it can be quite challenging. And thanks to Mark Langridge for sending me out an invite to the the app that he was talking about. So thanks to Mark for that. As you know, our timings are always 15 minutes for introductions from Lou and myself. Then we'll have our guest speaker session. We open the mics up and turn on the cameras at 10:30, say hello, have a brief wave at each other, and then we'll go into the Q&A session. And our guest speaker has got a little exercise and some pointers, so quite a useful, lively session. So we hopefully you can hang around for that. Oh, it's so cold, Lou, this week. It's so cold.
Put your teeth in, Stu.
Oh, my jaw is still cold from nipping across the road to my handy neighbourhood new coffee van. So don't forget to share your wins and learnings in the chat. Did you have a win or a learning this week, Lou?
Well, do you know what? Last weekend, I did a little tour around Borden, which I haven't done for a while, obviously during lockdown, you know, but it's not too far away from where I live. So I thought I'd change my outdoor walk, and I went to the Hogmore enclosure, and I also went to the Oriental shop, which I've been trying to go to for 3 years since I found out that it was there. And I know it's not a business win, but it was a win for me because I used to shop at Wing Yip many years ago and buy all the Oriental stuff. You know what? There's a mini Wing Yip right in Borden. It was fantastic. And they're such lovely people. They want to be part of the business community. So we made a good connection with them. And it was a real win, actually, just knowing that they're there and then actually going and they've got all this amazing produce. So for me, that was the win, and loving Borden and loving everything that's going on there.
So that's fantastic. Well, the win for me is finding out that there's a wonderful Oriental supply shop right in Borden, because I did not know. So thank you for telling me that. I've learned something, and I may be trotting along there tomorrow or later today.
So yeah, for anybody that wants to know, they're in the Woolmer Trading Estate, and I know Lisa was. I mentioned it to Lisa Woolner, who's here today. I literally, if you like Oriental bits and bobs, go and have a look. It's really good. So yeah, that was a win for me.
Excellent. So don't forget to stick your wins and your learnings in the chat, and we will come to them in a second. We'll quickly do the common sense disclaimer, Lou.
As it says on the tin, use whatever you hear today with common sense. Not everything applies to everybody, but you know, we're saying listen and use it with a common sense. And there's no more need to be said on that.
Fabulous. Excellent. So I love LinkedIn Local. I really love LinkedIn Local. It's becoming really part of what I do in a month, and it's coming up on Tuesday. Now, unfortunately, I can't come to this one because, ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, it's my birthday. Oh,
it's your birthday. It's your birthday. Little song.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn Local is going to love you this month, because the theme is love, 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 because of Valentine's Day on Sunday. So we're going to be doing the love at LinkedIn Local, and it's all about love. What do you love about your business? We're going to be really sort of exploring those sort of things in the breakout rooms. Sarah Bass has put together some questions and everything. So please come and join us. It will be really lovely to see you all. So it's next Tuesday, the 16th of February at 7 p.m. Book online. We, for those of you who struggled with the links, those have all been fixed, I'm assured. So book online and come and see us at LinkedIn Local.
Yes, definitely. I might try and just sneak in for 5 minutes.
You can't stay away, you know it.
I like people. I miss people. So coming up, as you know, this topic this month is mindset and motivation, and we have a collaboration session next week. Lou, we've got some special guests coming to our collaboration session.
We do. We've got so far confirmed. We've got Lorna Smith, Sue Bond, Shayna Telford, and Joanna Hodnott, and they're going to be coming along and giving us some tips within their various fields. And then we're going to go out into breakout rooms and really discuss those. There will be a workbook as well, listing all the tips. And come along and let's really dig deep and find out about mindset and motivation and what you can do from various different things. There's a lot that we can do. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. Really looking forward to that. And thank you to everybody that's confirmed that they'll be doing that. And we look forward to seeing as many of you as possible next week.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that one. March is all about planning for the future. we have a couple of excellent speakers. We've got a pension specialist. I know you're going to think yourself, what is exciting, interesting about pensions? Well, she's going to come and talk about financial independence and retiring early and how you can achieve that. It's the get rich slowly school of thought that investing and getting good returns help you to budget and keep your focus on what you actually want out of life and when you're actually going to stop working. I know as business owners we like to think we're going to keep going forever, but you know, at some point you've got to kick off your shoes and drink margaritas in the sands.
Oh, lovely.
So that's what that'll be the first week of March. And second week of March we've got a chap called Mike Weston coming along, and he's a post-trauma growth specialist, and lots of interesting information that he furnished me with about the plasticity of the mind post-trauma. It's very interesting, and so I'm quite interested in coming along, him coming along and hearing more about that.
Brilliant.
Going to be an interesting session, definitely. Then in April, marketing what's new. We have a packed program. I won't go into it all, but do book on. There's going to be some great stuff. There's some new movers and shakers on the block, new things that are on the horizon. What do you need to know? What do you need to do? We're going into it in some depth. So hopefully you'll book on for that, and we'll see you at one of those. And Lou, after this session, what can our guests expect?
So yes, welcome to all the guests that we've got here with us today. It's lovely for you to come along. Put in the chat if you want. Introduce yourselves. Give us, tell us a bit more about yourself in the chat. It would be lovely to hear. What we will do at the end of the session, if you don't mind hanging back right at the end of the session, and Stu and I will just have a quick chat to you. Tell us, tell you what we're about and what you can expect from us. It's no hard sell. It's just an enlightenment of all the things that we can offer you from Signal and the Biz Hub. So it would be lovely to meet you as well. So we look forward to seeing you at the end of the session.
Fantastic. Right. So Lou, wins and learnings. I'm going to stop the share there. Wins and learnings. Let's see what people have been putting in the chat.
Let's have a look and see. Right, so let's start. Oh, Dane Cartwright, let's start with him. He had a great first week of trading, and the support from this community has been overwhelming, and I'm so thankful. Learn now to start planning vehicle 2. Oh, I love that. I love it. I tell you what, Dane, whenever I have Zoom call with Stu, he goes, I'm just going to get a coffee, and he comes back with one of your coffees. I'm like, come on, Stu. So yeah, really good. Well done. That's really good, Dane.
So Lorna Smith said that Matt has already had a successful Zoom meeting with a company this morning, and she ran 5K in the fastest time for at least 3 years.
Oh, was that inspiration from Susie Chan last week, Lorna?
Was it like brilliant. Chariots of fire in your mind?
Oh, wow. That's really good. Who else have we got? I'm just scrolling through. There's a few here.
Sue Bonds had a win, provisional order for 40 greetings cards.
Wow, amazing. That's fantastic.
Fantastic.
Oh, Sue's also been to the Chinese shop to get treats for her Chinese students that will be staying with them for half term. That's lovely. Oh, I love that shop.
I think Joanna, she must get up at like 1 in the morning and go to bed at midnight. The amount of stuff she gets done. Look, there's a plethora, a veritable bounty, a cornucopia even. She's had all of the wins for everything. Another win is that I've got the clinic software system and it's about to go live. Well,
oh, fantastic.
That's a big win. That is a big win.
Very big win. Joanna Sprague has had a good week for her. She's got another 2 painting commissions looking likely. My new Instagram account is picking up interest. Thanks, Gareth, for the remote support last night when I was struggling with something. And I've had some interest from virtual galleries. Wow, that's really good, Joanna. Well done. Very, very good. Fantastic. And I must follow you on Instagram. I've made a note.
Excellent, excellent. So, Lou, I think we must applaud all of our members for all of their hard work this week, their wins, their learnings, whatever they did. Yes, knowing I realise you've now got a business address at Signal, so have that lovely veneer of professionalism, not veneer in a, you know what I mean. It adds a wrapper of professionalism. It's fantastic.
Fantastic. Really good wins, everybody. Really good wins. Keep them coming. We will, as you know, we publish them in the newsletter, so keep them coming. But now, without any further ado, I'm going to introduce to you our guest speaker today. After more than 15 years working at the very top of the UK government in security and intelligence, today's guest speaker has trained as a leadership trainer, a coach, and an organizational behaviorist. She's made the link between behaviors and business results, and she founded Verosa to help others develop themselves even better. She now works with a wide range of organizations in diverse sectors, helping professionals and teams to develop their skills. She is a firm proponent of coaching the person and not the problem, and believes passionately in the power of the individual to self-actualize and overcome the obstacles that prevent us from becoming who we want to be. Here today to help you develop the right mindset and get motivated is Beth Hood. Come on in, Beth. Come and join us.
Wow, that was quite an introduction.
There you go. And well deserved too. So it's lovely to have you. It's lovely to have you here, Beth, and welcome to the Biz Hub.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much for having me this morning, and really delighted to see everybody's wins coming in. That's really exciting stuff going on that you guys have been doing this week. I think my win for this week is joining this morning and being part of this fantastic setup and being part of Signal's Biz Hub.
Brilliant.
Well, we're going to hand over to you now, Beth. Lou and I will hang back in the wings. If you've got any problems, we're here. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, I'm going to share my screen, so hopefully you'll all be able to see my slide deck. This morning's talk is on motivation, finding your why. And I've subtitled it Finding Your Why because for me, motivation, it's all about being able to connect with what that why actually is. So we're going to take a little deep look at that. And before we do, I'll just tell you a little bit more about me. I mean, to be honest, Lou has said quite a lot about my background, just to give you a little bit more detail about who I am and why I might be qualified to talk on this morning. First of all, I'm passionate about bringing great leadership behaviours to today's organisations. That's what I live for. I think if you were to ask me, I would say that's my particular why. As Lou said, I have 16 years in British government in security intelligence. What that actually means is that I was a professional spy for most of that time, which is usually the bit that people want to talk to me about. It's probably the least interesting thing about what I do, to be honest with you. However, it did inform who I am, and it certainly gave me my why. So probably more on that as the session goes on. But over those years, what I really discovered was there was a deep connection between the operational work that I was doing in the realms of national security, so fighting terrorism, working on espionage cases, whatever that looked like for me in that operational setup. There was a really deep connection between that and being a great leader of people. And then from that, I also worked out that behaviors that I needed to lead people in some really, really tough situations also required me to be very connected to who I was as a person. So who we are as people, who we show up as, has a very direct relevance and resonance to how we come across to people that choose to follow us, whether that's teams, clients, stakeholders, suppliers, whoever it is we're working with. In my case, it didn't really matter whether I was trying to convince a member of a terrorist organization to share some secrets with us that would keep our country safe versus working with police partners or partners from overseas. Actually, it all came down to the same set of skills, and it started with me knowing me. So that's really where I work from today. I should say that if you have questions as we go through, I'm conscious we're going to have a great opportunity to share questions after the webinar part of the session. But if you do have questions, feel free to throw things into the chat, and I will try and monitor them and keep an eye on them and answer anything that comes up. So that was where I started. And then in that time, I had lots of different roles, mostly senior leadership roles in relatively high profile international operations. And then I moved to being a coach, professional coach, and working with individuals. Now, firstly, that meant that I was able to bring some of that experience and those data points of my own to bear on the work that other people were doing in their businesses and their organizations. And it also gave me a chance to research a lot of the sort of concepts and the theories that were relatively embryonic for me at the time. So things like actually what happens in relationship dynamics when somebody starts to understand more about themselves? What happens when we bring our awareness to who we are as people and the way we behave? What's the impact we can really have? And this is where my belief and my philosophy, I think it probably is a philosophy, it's where my philosophy about coaching the person, not the problem, really took off. The idea being that actually I'm not an expert in you, you're the expert in you. And so my coaching work really relies on me being able to create a space where you feel comfortable and safe and challenged and stretched to do some really good thinking about your problems. Ultimately, you have the resources at your disposal to come up with the answers that you're looking for. So that's really where the coaching started. And then I went on to form Verosa. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Leadership and Management. I don't really know what that means, but I thought I'd throw that in there anyway. I work really closely with the Institute of Leadership and Management, and we do a lot of courses. We're a satellite centre for some of their courses. I started Verosa only 3 years ago. And as you can see, I started in this room. There's a fantastic photo of Jeff Bezos in the beginning days of Amazon, sat in his garage with boxes of books around him. And I'm sort of reminded of that now when I look at this particular room that I'm sat in. And it does motivate me. It does give me a bit of an oomph because it reminds me of the journey I've already been on. And one of the things that I would invite you to do as we're going through the webinar today is be mindful of your own journeys, because your data points and the journey that you've been on for your business will be really helpful to you in sort of digging deep to find motivation, particularly when we run into tougher times. And nowadays, Verosa, well, we work with all sorts of organizations, mostly in the corporate space. We have relatively high profile clients in tech, some in finance. We've got some charity sector, so we work with some large charities, some global organizations in media. So we've got some really fantastic clients that we're working with, and we're growing all the time. And I attribute that, in a really short space of time, I attribute that to me finding out my particular why, which is what I'm going to share with you today, because I think it's powerful, and I think it will be, for me, it was game-changing. I really hope it is for you too. I should say, oops, before we go on to that I'm also a mum, and this is part of my why too. I'm sure that many of you will be thinking for yourselves about, you know, what's involved in this why. Well, part of my why is being a mum, and I am also cook, school teacher, taxi driver, therapist. What else can we add to that? Definitely referee. That's a referee up there. Sometimes I'm you know, called upon to mediate in arguments between the two girls, Verity and Rosa. And if you're really sharp, you might have noticed that Verosa is a combination of their names. So that might tell you a little bit more about my why as well. Just check on the chat because something's come in. Cleaner, thanks Joe. I'm definitely cleaner. I was trying to think about all the other things that I do, but yeah, cleaner is definitely up there. And if anyone can think of any of the other roles that ought to go on my CV, because I'm sure you'll all be doing them yourselves, particularly at the moment. But that's really enough about me, because today isn't about me. Today is about you. It's all about you. And the session that I put together is designed to help provide some context and background to finding your internal purpose. I'm going to talk more about what that actually looks like, and why it's important, why it's a key differentiator for small business owners. There's some great statistics which I can share with you separately if anyone's interested on businesses, people who have founded small businesses and their rate of growth. Those who have a very clear and defined and intentional why are really set apart from those who don't. So I think that's worth bearing in mind. There's something like a 30% success rate for those who have an intentional why built in, hardwired into their businesses versus those who choose not to, or perhaps for whatever reason haven't ever given it that thought. The fact that you're all part of BizHub and part of Signal shows to me that you're intentional about your business. I mean, it shows that you do work on your business. It's really hard sometimes to carve out that time, I think, as small business owners, and hopefully today will give you a chance to think about that more. The workshop's also going to help you identify and develop your why. So rather than just it staying in the realms of theory, that's all very well, Beth, but so what? We're going to really do a deep dive into that and hopefully provide you with some tools that will fuel some thoughts, maybe spark something in your mind. I put that picture of a firework up there intentionally, so sparking something and helping you think about how you might use that why to develop and grow your business. I'm also going to introduce you to probably one of the best shortcut techniques that I've come across in my work as a facilitator and executive coach. And this technique allows us to get past being stuck. So the days when we really can't be bothered, when we're having to dig really deep for motivation, when actually it's all we can do to put one foot in front of the other. And believe me, we've all been there, and I think we've all probably been there a lot recently. We've been through some really tough times, and it's great today. The sun's shining. Lou and Stu and I were commenting on how much that changes things a bit than when it's a bit grey and harder to sort of muster that motivation. But this is a great technique, and it's a shortcut technique to allow us to do that. Okay. Grab my little timer so I'm making sure that I'm not going over time. Okay, so just as an experiment, and use the chat, please could you introduce yourself to me? Using the chat, please could you introduce yourself to me? Who are you? Now, I think there's about 20, so I'll give it a couple of moments just for you to type into the chat. Who are you? Please introduce yourself. Fab, they're coming in. Thank you. Lovely. Lovely. Artist, small business owner, escape to art. Great, thank you. Message. And Matt and Sheila, lovely. Great. John Ryland from Ryland Research. Hi, Jenny. I know Jenny. Fantastic. Thank you, Lisa. Lorna, I love the fact it goes mum, wife, and business owner in that order. I'm Emma, and I love helping small businesses. We go. Graphic designer, marketing nerd, and currently battling with a hyper puppy. Vicky, that's brilliant. I love it. Okay, well, I'm looking forward to seeing the hyper puppy when we get to see each other face to face. Okay, lovely. Any more to come in, by all means, keep typing. I'll have a look at them. What's interesting to me, there was quite a range there. And what's interesting to me when we look at that, and do have a look at those introductions, most of us as small business owners, we're probably doing quite a lot of networking. So we're in this space quite often where suddenly the spotlight's on us and we're asked to introduce ourselves. And I don't know about you, but I have that kind of momentary, oh, who am I actually? And then I launch into, well, I'm Beth Hood, and I'm the founder of Verosa, and Verosa is a leadership development consultancy, and then I'm off. But actually what I've learned is that what we're saying at that point is what we do rather than why we do it. So just reflect on that a moment. We tend to identify ourselves by what we do rather than why we do it. We rely on our job title, perhaps the name of our business. Very often we leave out why we do it. Sometimes we say a little bit about how. Very often we leave out why we do it. So let's just have a look at those comments in the chat there. Fantastic. Stuart, I'm awesome and modest. Now, this is really interesting. I'm just going to pick out, if you don't mind, Joanna, I'm just going to pick up Joanna's. I am Joanna, and I help people who are worried about their bodies prevent injuries, or those in pain recover from them. I own balanced bodies. For me, I've got a very clear sense of Joanna's why she exists in her particular business. There was another one that I wanted to pick up on. So we've got, there we go. We've got Lisa. I'm a virtual assistant who loves to help. I missed it now. It's gone. It's disappeared. There we go. We'll come back, Lisa's. A virtual assistant who loves to help small businesses thrive. I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? So we've got some really, really great whys coming through. In amongst those that are more traditional, the ones that we would expect to see. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and this is what I do. This is my role. So just already we're starting to shift our mindset a little bit and go from the idea that who we are is what we do. So we're looking at this as an equation. On the one side, we've got what we do and who we are, and we're equating those two things, but actually I'm offering you and inviting you the opportunity to add into that mix why you do it. Why do you do what you do? You're small business owners, so you have a passion for something that's led you to that particular business. Why do you do what you do? What's in it for you? So here we go. This won't be news to anybody. There's a whole industry of why out there, but I'm hoping this makes it a little bit more real and alive for us. So Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. I think on an intellectual level, we sort of know that. We sort of know that when we make buying decisions, we go for, it's quite an emotional contract that happens. I think about something that I bought last week. I bought it online. I didn't necessarily buy it because the product was the best one or because the pricing was right, but actually it was actually some silk flowers, and I bought it because the lady that was selling it talked about why she wanted people to have access to these beautiful flowers in their lives, and that spoke to me, and that for me was the point where I chose to make the purchase. More coming into the chat here. Okay. I've just seen Emma's. I believe that the regeneration of Borden and other towns should be driven and inspired by small business, because small business is the lifeblood of any community. That's fantastic. Absolutely lovely. It's not just Simon who says this. So this isn't a new idea, this idea that we want to connect our business intentions with our deep visceral why. This is a relatively old idea. Nietzsche, the philosopher, said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And when you think about, just reflect on that a moment, when you think about some of the tougher challenges that perhaps have beset us all recently, I think about the days when it's been really quite tough to find the impetus to move, the impetus to get back on with things, to go out and talk to clients, to develop my business, to dig deep, then actually I go back to my why. And that's been really, really helpful. And that's what Nietzsche was saying there. I also really, really like this quote from Mark Twain: the two most important days in your life are the day that you're born and the day you find out why. Now, maybe you already know really, really fully what your why is. I think from looking at the chat, there are some people clearly among us who have done quite a lot of work on this, which is fantastic. And maybe it's a chance today to just sort of regroup around that, refresh your connection with that, and think about how it serves you as a small business owner. For others of us, it may be that this is slightly opaque as a concept, and maybe we haven't done any intentional work on it yet. Just to make sure and drive home that we're all conscious of why working on our why is beneficial to us as small business owners, have a look at some of these. People who know their lived purpose, is what I mean when I say why, are more likely to experience less levels of stress. So there was a fantastic piece of research done in the United States in 2015. On stress hormone cortisol, which is the hormone that we experience when we have higher levels of stress, and it leads to quite physical responses in our bodies, including sort of sweaty palms and dry mouth and all that kind of thing. Including it can also be very connected with adrenaline. So anyone that's experienced those sorts of things is also likely to be experiencing adrenaline. This was a particular study on the stress hormone cortisol, and the study found that people who were able to articulate their why, so it wasn't necessarily that they were every day intentionally kind of talking about it, it was just that they were able to articulate it, had lower levels of stress hormone in them than those who didn't. Now, I think that's really fascinating. Even just by knowing our why, our purpose, our lived purpose, we're likely to be less stressed in our lives. Isn't that great? I would, that's fantastic. I'll sign up right now. Also, we're likely to have better immune systems and enjoy overall better health, high levels of health. And this probably goes without saying, but it's worth calling it out. We're likely to find enjoyment and fulfillment in our work if we have a real connection to our why. This is one that I've come across recently, and it's become really, really important to me at the moment when, I don't know about you guys, but I'm experiencing a lot of what I describe as cognitive overload. So that's the thing that, I've got 2 children being homeschooled, I've got a business to run, I've got elderly parents that need support, I'm trying to stay connected to my friends, I'm trying to look after my body in the middle of all this. And so there's a lot of demands on me from a psychological perspective. Being able to occasionally regroup around my why allows me better focus and more clarity. It allows me to prioritize and deprioritize really quite ruthlessly sometimes. And that has been a skill that's been really, really helpful to me. I saw something pop up in the chat. There we go. Wow, I'm loving this. We've got people starting to rewrite their whys on the chat, which is fantastic. So just think back to times when you've had deep connection with what you're doing and why you're doing it, and whether or not you yourself can also say, that was a time when I had better focus and better clarity. Actually, I was quite crystal clear on what needed to be done. Often that's in a time of crisis. So if you think back to the beginning of the pandemic, the world had a why, the most significant why that we have experienced from a social and economic perspective since the Second World War. Essentially, we had a collective global why. And my goodness, did we mobilize? I mean, look at the strides we've made scientifically speaking. And yet there have been lots of things that haven't been great about it all. But actually, when you look at the journey we've been on and how quickly we were able to develop a vaccine, which in normal times would have taken years and years and years of research, actually that level of focus and clarity that we were able to draw on came because we were all signed up to that collective why. There's also research that shows that those of us who understand our whys as small business owners reach higher value clients. that actually we can go further than we expect, and consequently enjoy higher levels of wealth, that we can achieve elite level results in more than one discipline. So I'm struck by the fact that we've got people in the panelists today who work in the space of looking after our bodies. Well, actually, when we start working on our why, the chances are we can sort of shift our focus and keeping that why in mind, also start to excel in different areas. And I'll give you an example of that. So a really dear friend of mine who started his own business a couple of years ago, he's also blind, and he is a fantastic ambassador for disability and entrepreneurship. So he'd always flown the flag for disabled people, and in particular for people with sight impairment. So he had been running this organization for a couple of years, and it was doing really, really well. And then I worked with him on his why. And suddenly, not only did his business take off, so it wasn't just about him just sparking and finding motivation to do things and exciting things and innovative things in his business. He became very intentional about his life outside of his business as well, and he climbed Kilimanjaro, which I think for a mere mortal, for anyone like me, is going to be really, really tough. I am never probably going to sign up to climbing Kilimanjaro, and this chap who is blind and had to have a guide all the way up, and had to put his trust in this other person leading him, and operating at temperatures of sub-zero a lot. He climbed to the summit of Kilimanjaro, and he says that is connected to him finding his why. Once he worked out what his why was, once he worked out that he exists, his whole purpose in life is to show the world that it is possible to have a disability and still do really, really well. And then his business went in a slightly different direction, and then he also started doing things in different parts of his life. So I think that was really, for me, it was very powerful and hugely inspiring as well. We're also able to bounce back from setbacks really, really quickly when we know why we're getting up every morning. Think about that, the days when perhaps we don't want to get up and face the world and bring our very best selves to our work. Actually knowing why we're there in the first place can help us get through and then also bounce back from it. And I'm interested to hear that you're going to have a speaker who's going to be talking about trauma, and it'll be interesting to know whether he talks about purpose, sense of purpose in trauma. There's a direct link in some of the work that I've been looking at, particularly in the areas of neuroscience, between a deep-seated purpose and the neurosynapses that are involved in creating that, and our ability to bounce back from trauma. Lovely. I just read Fiona's. I am Fiona, and I would like to use my knowledge and experience to help people improve their environment. Oh, amazing. Really, really amazing. And isn't that so much more powerful than I am Fiona from X company? I mean, it just is right away. It really is. Okay. So people who know they live purpose are more likely to pivot at speed and be more innovative. I mentioned my friend who was blind and who already had a relatively strong business in the construction industry. Once he realized that actually he was working for a particular why, he started to employ lots more people from the world of disability, and also to work with construction companies who were creating spaces for disabled people. So he changed the scope of his business. He changed the focus of his business quite significantly from where it had been. He had been a generalist supplier to the construction industry, and then he became much more focused on this particular area of the industry, and it took off enormously. So that idea of pivoting and being reactive and responsive and actually being quite creative with our thinking also comes out of firstly knowing why. Okay, so I've gone on and on and on about why, but we're here to find out your why. So ask yourself this, and in the Q&A session, I'm going to drop this slide into the chat, and then you can use it perhaps to sort of be a bouncing off point or a jumping off point for our conversation and the Q&A session. Ask yourself these questions. What makes you come alive? So this is about a connection with something that's bigger than you, but is also connected to who you are and what you care about. And we're already starting to hear some of that coming through in the chat, which is fab, really, really fab. For me, it's about leadership. It didn't really matter what the context was. It could have been MI5 or working in that sort of operational world. It could have been in big corporate, but actually for me, it was all about leadership. I feel very, very strongly and passionate about helping people find who they are as leaders. That's my why. When are you most in your element? So when are you in, sometimes people talk about being in flow, and I think that's when things are easy. When do you not need energy to do the things that you're doing? So usually it's some sort of intersection between things that we like doing and things that we're good at. So if you imagine those are Venn diagrams, and you can almost take a pen, if you've got a pen to hand, and draw yourself a couple of circles and write in one circle, what do you like doing? Write in another circle, what are you good at doing? Take a moment just to perhaps do that exercise and then see where the overlap is. Because usually something in that middle section, that crossover, that Venn diagram, allows us to see when we're most in our element, when things are happening in flow with ourselves. So that's about knowing ourselves and what we've got to offer, and then we look outwards. So then we start to say, okay, so I've got this to offer, where can I go? And this is what happened to my friend who changed the focus of his business in the construction industry. Where can I, given what I know, it brings me into flow, what makes me come alive, where can I now add greatest value? Because believe me, if your market like mine is saturated, and it really is saturated, and it's very, very highly populated, you need to be able to differentiate yourself in a way that makes you stand out. And it's going to be the passion with which you can bring your why to life that will make you different to the next person that's offering exactly the same thing. What problems are you drawn to solving? What does your experience, your knowledge, and your skill set make you a good fit for? So at the end of my time in intelligence and security, there was a question about what I did next. I knew that I didn't want to continue working in that particular arena, mostly because I needed to spend much more time with my family than I was, and do quite a lot less travel than I was doing. So I needed to change my life in some way. So there was a big driver there. And then I looked at kind of my experience and my knowledge and my skill set, and there were a whole range of things that I could have done. I'd had a whole range of different sort of operational experiences, and I had done lots of strategy work. I'd done lots of policy work. I had worked in government and with the civil service. I'd done a lot around security, so I could have gone into security elsewhere for organisations. I'd done a lot with national infrastructure, so there was a lot I could do. There was a lot on offer to me at that point in my life. But actually it was finding what I was best fit for that helped me find my why. And this is the question I love most. It's a little bit dark, but I don't mean it to be. If you think forward for a second and just visualize, maybe you're at the end of your life. And if you're as old as me, you'll remember This Is Your Life. And the red book of This Is Your Life. And if you're very young, then you won't know what I'm talking about. But just to give you a quick idea, it's an old TV program, really sort of iconic TV program where a celebrity usually who is getting on in their years and quite sort of towards the end of their career maybe, has the opportunity to look back over their lives, and people from all different areas of their lives come and talk about them. And they say really lovely things usually about them and what they meant to them. And I think that's a really great way of trying to work out our why. Because if you imagine your version of that This Is Your Life red book, what do you want people to say about you? I have a conversation with my my friend who works, tirelessly, and often struggles and has challenges with work-life balance. And I do wonder, we talk about how much of that she's going to look back on and be comfortable with at the end of her life. And I think there's a saying about no one's going to put on your gravestone, she worked loads of hours at the weekend. So I think there's something there. How do you want to be measured in your life? Play the tape forward and think about how you want to be remembered. How can you align that with what you are, what you do, and who you are? Think about that for a second. Maybe make some notes. We're going to use this for our conversation afterwards, and I'll be supplementing with a few extra questions and just helping you tease some of that out, hopefully. Okay, so we're coming to this technique that I told you about. Is quite helpful in getting us unstuck. So assuming we now know what our why is, we've got to be able to use this why in a really potent way. So you'll probably find that once you've got that, maybe it's a statement, maybe it's a drawing if you're very artistic. Some people it's just a concept. However, whatever your why looks like for you, once you've got it and you've started to narrow it down and you've been able to be quite intentional about it, now we can start to put it into practice and use it in our choices. Now, what's really fascinating about this, there's a couple of things that are fascinating about this. Once you know what your purpose is, your subconscious gets on board with the plan, which I think is really fantastic. So basically means we've sent a little letter to that really primitive part of our brain. And that says, right, okay, I've signed up to living for this reason. That means that all the choices I make, I will put more weight on whatever choice point leads me to that purpose. There's lots written on this, and I'm happy to share more if people are interested in finding out a bit more about this. The idea being that essentially we've shown the pathway, we've put the flag in the sand, and our subconscious gets on board. They've got the memo, it's got the memo, and then the choice points we have are more likely to be geared. We're going to gear those choices so that we make choices going towards that flag. Joe, absolutely no problem. I can send you more information on that. And if anyone else wants it, please drop it into the chat. So that's once we've done our why, that's once we've got that really, really deeply ingrained and really, really intentional. However, in the meantime, our brains are geared to avoid doing difficult things. Actually, it's a survival instinct. If you think about it, most of the time, almost all the time, we know what the right thing to do is. It's usually when people talk about self-motivation, they're not talking about, I don't know what to do. They're talking about the difference between knowing what to do, knowing what to do, and the movement towards doing it, the action. So there's that knowledge action gap. And that's because it's a survival instinct in us, very deep survival instinct. That means that we are geared to basically take the path of least resistance, do the easy thing, snooze button, typical. Opting out of an exercise class, not making the healthiest choice, putting off a difficult conversation. That's our survival instinct. That's how we're geared to do. Once we start identifying our why, then our subconscious gets the memo that says, hang on a second, pressing snooze right now might put me at odds with the why that I know we're working towards. So we can bring this up even at a further level in the brain, and we can help ourselves do this even more intentionally. And we can break cognitive patterns that allow us to fall into the snooze button behavior. And it's called metacognition, which is just a kind of a fancy way of saying being intentional about things. So this is the launchpad technique, and it's really, really simple. It is a behavioral pattern interrupt. Okay, so basically what we're doing is we're just taking the opportunity to go, no, just at that point when we're making a decision that might take us away from our why. That's what happens. It's a proven metacognition technique. A lot of therapists will use it with people, particularly with people who are addicted to substances. It's used a lot in therapy for that kind of thing. So it's a really, really useful technique, and it works very, very well. It does need to be practiced. So we need to develop, remember we were talking about that brain plasticity. Stu was talking about the guy that's going to come and talk about trauma. Brain plasticity, even at sort of an older age, we still have about 20% of our brain which is malleable, and we can learn new things and change things, and we can change behaviors. So it can be learned, and it has to be practiced. So it's a case of just doing this a lot, but it does work. So all we do is the first thing is to be aware of a micro moment of choice. So case in point, I know that I have to write a blog probably once a month to make sure that I am getting the publicity that I need, that I'm supporting the SEO on my website. It's not something that I necessarily always feel really, really inspired to do. Although I quite like writing, I don't necessarily always feel inspired to do it. But when I think about my why, I know that there's something in it. I know that I've got to do it. At the point where I could sit down and write my blog, or I could go to the fridge and take out, I don't know, something yummy to eat, or I could go and wander off and have a walk, or I could go and make a call to a friend, or perhaps start scrolling on my phone, because, you know, there's definitely 2 hours worth of activity involved in that. I count back from 5 to 1. It only works if we count backwards. If you count forwards, you can carry on. So you've got to have a definitive end. Count back from 5 to 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you immediately take whatever action is most aligned with your why. You don't think about it, you just do whatever it is that's most aligned with your why. I just start the blog. I just start the blog, or I just get out of bed if I'm struggling with the snooze. And it's that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 go that interrupts our subconscious, that wants to do the easy thing, and it helps us connect with the why. So that probably sounds a little unusual, and it might be slightly strange for partners and family members if you find yourself counting as you walk towards the fridge, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, walk away from the fridge. So I totally get that, but I would definitely recommend having a go at it, experiment with it, and see how it works for you. Okay, so there's a couple of additional resources out there for you, and I'm happy to answer loads of questions as they come. But Simon Sinek's sort of seminal work on this, Start With Why, is a great read. And if you're not someone that necessarily wants to read the entire book, if you Google him, you can see his TED talk on this, which is really quite inspirational and sort of distills it down for us. This is a really great book. Margie Worrell's Stop Playing Safe is a fantastic resource, particularly for small business owners that want to be quite innovative. Once you know your why, then you can start sparking off of that and finding other ways for using your business. And there's a great Harvard Business Review article there, which helps you put purpose at the core of your business strategy. And it's written for a corporate audience, but it absolutely resonates and has value for the smaller business. And you can look on our website. We've got lots of resources online that you can use, free resources to download, and also some insights and press articles that we curate for you, some of which will help you with some of this stuff. So, oh, I should also say that if you would like to do more work on your strengths in particular, so if you're looking at that overlay of strengths versus likes, you know, what I like doing, what I'm good at doing, Strengths Profile, it does both. And that will give you a really, really nice readout. I like it as a tool. I think it's about £10 to do. Just go onto their website. And I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody who wants to talk through their results. So I will stop sharing. I think we're going into the Q&A session now. So I'll stop sharing and hand back over to Lou and Stu.
Thank you very much, Beth. I am endlessly fascinated by human minds. It's just so wonderful to be able to control your thoughts and to intentionally approach your work and your outcomes. So I love all of that stuff, really do. What did you get out of it, Lou?
Wow, so much. It's, you know, I think it's common, I suppose, to sometimes get distracted from your why and have that sort of like you get involved in sort of the other things around it, and to keep that focus. I personally struggle with keeping that focus. I have to constantly remind myself. So and I love the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I really, really love that. I love productivity anyway, and I talk a lot about productivity, and that's a really, really good tip on that is, you know, that procrastination. We have that book, I don't know whether you've read it, Eat That Frog, all about procrastination. I love that book. And it is that just get on and just do it. And that's a really, really good tip. So yeah, thank you.
Last week, Susie Can was talking about this, and I heard the phrase, and I mentioned it last week, motion before emotion. So in other words, get going before you start to think, how do I feel about this?
Really nice. Yeah.
And I've been intentionally thinking to myself, stop saying no because you're gonna, oh, it's this or it's that or it's cold or whatever. Just get doing it. And when you're doing it, you're doing it. You're not going to say stop doing it. So fantastic. I'm going to let everybody come in now. So
lovely.
I'm going to go and click buttons. Everybody will join us. If you could just put your mics on mute when you come in the room, and then we'll hand back to Beth. She can facilitate, and then we'll ask all the questions. So here we go.
Brilliant. Let's get everybody in. I love it when everybody comes in.
It's really nice to put faces to names.
It really, yeah, it is. It's great. It's really, really good. So lovely to see everybody coming in. You've got my mind whirring, Beth. Literally, the cogs are going in my mind. I've made some notes and I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah,
hi everyone.
Really, here we go. Everybody coming in.
Don't feel slighted if you're still waiting. There's a long list, and I'm working through it alphabetically.
I know there's not that one button hits all, is there? You've got to click through.
Got to click them all. I don't think they're expecting all of our attendees to be promoted to panelists.
There we go.
I'm so sorry, Sue. And I'm so sorry, Vicky.
There we go. Is everybody here? I think so.
Is that everybody?
There we go.
I think so. Is that everybody, Stu?
Yep. Attendees 0, panelists 20.
Yay.
Yay, there we are. We're all here. Well, lovely to see everybody. Good morning. Lovely to see all your faces. And wow, what a thought-provoking talk. I don't know about you, but my mind is whirring round.
Fantastic. So, Beth, do you want to direct the Q&A? And you talked about having a exercise.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd be interested, are there any questions? Does anyone feel brave enough to ask a question at this point that might have come up for you in the session? Because I'm really happy to answer any questions. And then I've got a little something to do. Sheila, go ahead.
Actually, it's not a question. It's about when you struggle to find your why.
Yeah.
I will go back to very young children. What do you get out of their mouth? Why? Why? So if you treat it like layers of an onion, you ask the first question, why? Peel that layer away, ask the why again, peel it away until you get to the core, which is the strongest, tangiest bit of the lemon, because that will be your true why.
Oh, Sheila, that's lovely.
If you've got to keep going, it's no good stopping after 3. No, think of that kiddie again. Why?
And they do, and they'll carry on ad infinitum, Sheila. No, that's really nice. Permission to use that, if that's okay, because I think that's a really lovely metaphor.
It wasn't mine. Funny enough, I really picked it up from a really old LP, which was called The Layers of an Onion, and somebody was talking about peeling away to get to your why, and I thought, that's it. It's that lemon again. Or no, not lemon, your onion. Sorry, got lemons on the brain.
Brilliant. Definitely be using that. So so at the point you finished, ask yourself again why, like a child would. I love that. Great idea. Any other thoughts, comments, observations, challenges, questions? We've got Lorna first, and then we'll go to David. Lorna.
Well, first of all, I found that really, really insightful. I mean, I know finding your why isn't new, but you delivered it in such a way that it's just made me think, right, I'm going to go back, I'm going to do that Venn diagram, I'm going to really nail it this time. And so that was really, really useful. Thank you. And this is just slightly selfish, but is this something that we could do? I did have a quick look at your website, because the team that I work with at WPA, I think lots of people could actually benefit from something like this. So I'd really love to have a conversation with you afterwards, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
About taking it out to a wider audience. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, very happy to. Absolutely. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think you're right. I think it isn't new, is it? This isn't new territory. And you know, we've got people talking about it way back when. But sometimes I think we sort of sometimes lose the meaning of it. So it's not necessarily meaning for us and front and center all the time. It's
overcomplicated, I think, sometimes the way it's presented or delivered. But that was really, really helpful.
Glad you enjoyed it. Thank you, Lorna. And David, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. Likewise, really, really good. Can I just ask you just a personal question? I've just had a look at some of your websites, etc., and on there it says that you've been really inspired by interaction with horses. And I just wanted to understand a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there's a couple of people that know me on this. So I have 3 horses, and one of the things that I've had to learn as a leader, particularly in my old world, so when we're talking about interacting with leaders from other organizations, leaders from other countries, often when the stakes are very high, you know, we're talking about threat to life situations, communication has been really tough, really, really tough. I'm carrying an awful lot on behalf of my country. Arguably, they're carrying an awful lot on behalf of their country as well. And somehow we've got to find a way to work out how we're going to take an operation forward that results in us saving as many lives as we possibly can. That's the deal, right? What I found was that my work with horses allowed me to own my own presence in a way that I hadn't done before. And I don't, is anyone familiar with working with horses? Anyone have horsey back? There we go. So we've got a few people know what I mean. You cannot be inauthentic with a horse. You can't pretend to be confident with a horse. They can smell your inconfidence just a mile away. So I go up to a horse and my body language is sending a message to them that I'm not fully subscribed to what it is I want to do. Then they will smell that. And I found that I could make a connection between that and my work with whoever it was, the Libyans or the Pakistanis or whatever, whoever it was I was working with at the time, that actually I needed to be so sure of who I was as a person and my rightness to be there, that person at that time representing what I was representing, my validity as a leader, and probably something around not giving myself an excuse to shy away. So that was really where that came out, and it still bears fruit today. I still do a lot of work with clients with horses, those who in particular are struggling with executive presence. So, you know, get to a top of an organization, and I've got to carry some weight here. Gravitas and credibility is you know, part of who I am. But actually, I'm still asking myself questions internally that it means I'm getting in the way of my own.
Thank you. That's really fascinating. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Nice question, and thanks for looking at the website. Any other questions?
It's time to be racked with imposter syndrome when the stakes are that high.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
It's tough, and you know, I really love your wins and learns, and for me the learns are so rich. Oh my word, it's a gift when things go badly wrong, and they have, you know, they really have. And I think it's useful to just reflect on that, and often that is about, for me at least, it has been about in the past a little bit of those questions that haunt us all. You know, am I good enough? Am I the right person? Am I qualified? Am I valid? Yes is the answer. You are enough, but you've got to own it a little bit.
I thought I saw somebody raise a hand.
Somebody else?
And the screens have all moved around. There we are, Shayna.
Shayna. Hi, Shayna.
Hi, I had a question about the third part of, I can do what makes you come alive. Where are you most in your element? And how will you measure your life? I'm quite clear on all of those. When I actually get down to the why, I'm much less clear about where I can add greater value.
Okay, so
if you could talk a little bit about that.
For sure. So just let me make sure I'm hearing this right. So you're okay with understanding what makes you come alive, so you can identify that. Shani,
Yeah.
can I ask what do you do?
I run the Centre of Complementary Medicine, so I have a team of 12 practitioners. I'm also a homeopath and Reiki practitioner. I have a jewellery business and I'm a landlord. So
Okay.
businesses.
Okay. So this is an exercise. Yeah.
And the thing that links them all, apart from actually probably the landlord, which is the one I struggle with most, and it's accidental, is that I'm creative.
Okay. So creativity is definitely
to all of it.
Okay. Okay.
And that's where I'm most in my element, is when I'm being creative in whatever form, and often that is an intellectual creativity. So connecting people either with their own incoherences or connecting people together. So making connections between practitioners or practitioners and clients.
Really?
So that, is how will I measure my life? My capacity to do that, to bring people together in times of crisis and hold the space in the middle between very extreme polar views, which is what we've had in the centre this year.
Wow. And that's really
powerful. All of that.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Just as you were talking, I don't know about anybody else, but I had quite a physical a visceral reaction to that. I felt very strongly that your why was quite centered. That I think if I were working with you one-to-one as a client, we would probably at this point get the post-it notes out if we could, if we were in real life, or if we were using Zoom, we'd probably go onto the whiteboard and I would write down some of the words that you just said. So connectivity, creativity, crisis was an interesting word there. So, there's something there, and we probably just start to pull that apart and do a bit more work on that. It might be a really nice exercise for you to do a bit of a brainstorm for yourself, because I think you're beginning to work out the connection between all those different things that you're passionate about. And I think if we go back to Sheila's onion, we need to get to the center of it. So I encourage you to ask yourself, be your own coach, ask yourself, so why is it that helping people find that space in a crisis, why is that important to me? Why do I particularly want to focus on that? What is it I can give them? Why can I do that? Maybe there's something about yourself and your unique talent in that area, and I don't know you obviously, but maybe there's something about your own experiences and your own data points. For me, having seen one of my data points is poor leadership that led to loss of life. So for me, that has been part of my why. It's been part of my journey.
Yeah.
So, are you done, Shana? Do you?
Yes.
Follow-ups? You're good. Beth, I just wanted to ask, in my own experiences, is it possible to be positively driven by a negative why?
Oh, that's a good one, Stuart.
So I can fill that out with some example.
Yeah.
Bullying. I was severely bullied at school. None of the teachers, none of the senior adults in my life took any ownership for it. So it went on for a significant portion of my comprehensive education. I've come to terms with it quite recently, to be fair, but a lot of why I do what I do is to show them that I'm better than them.
Wow. Okay. So I'm really sorry to hear you had that experience first and foremost, but I think
who I am. So
exactly that, and that I think is there's a richness in that. There's a value in that, and I think for all of us, we can probably point to things that have been problematic and traumatic and challenging in our lives that actually have ultimately helped us in some way. Can we be driven by a negative why? Yes, I think it's possible. I think it's more constructive to try, if we possibly can, and turn it into a positive why. So rather than seeing it as something you're moving away from, something that you're moving towards, so that it's not I'm proving the bullies wrong, it's I'm showing the world a different way, or whatever that might be for you in your language. In neurolinguistic programming terms. It would be about turning that almost on its head so that you can find a positive to work towards, rather than the only risk with negative whys is that it can introduce a negative neural pathway that can lead you, it can lead you back occasionally. So when things go wrong, you can find yourself back there. It's because of the bullying, or it's because I had a bad experience with a leader in the past, in my case, or it's because I've had an experience that was traumatic. Actually, we have choice points in the moment, and our choice points, and we can choose to use that to influence where we go, but they shouldn't necessarily, in my sort of philosophy, they shouldn't necessarily be shaping and driving all our activity. That actually we've made a choice to move away from it, and that's quite a positive step. Am I making sense there? Because that's quite nuanced.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that. It was a complicated question, but it's just interesting that when you start to think about it, and all of the people in the room, they're all here because they were driven to do something. And quite often there is some, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz. The wizard is behind the curtain and we're not quite sure why we're doing it, but we feel good about doing it. So delving into that is always of interest, definitely.
I think one other thing to say is, don't be frightened of your why, whatever that looks like. So we quite often find that we are, we'll say, oh, I want to help people, which is a hugely commendable why. But actually, maybe your why is to make a load of money, and that's fine. If that's genuinely your why, then I think owning it is a really useful useful to you, because otherwise it's inauthentic, and inauthentic whys, we're back to being in the stable with the horse that can smell us. Know it and own it. You don't necessarily have to share it with anybody else, but know it for yourself at least. Sheila, you've got your hand up.
I just want to say, Stuart, I now know why you are awesome and modest.
Oh.
Thank you, Sheila. I'm embarrassed now. Do we have any other questions? I see. I'm trying to monitor quite a few
Jane's got a hand up.
Screens here. Jane, did you have your hand up?
No.
Accidental hand.
Oh.
Joanna has. Yeah.
Can I add something very quickly? I always thought I knew what my why was, and it's about helping people and creating structure, and by doing what I do, I enable other people to work more productively and more effectively. However, 3 years ago when I joined Signal, I realized what my true, it's almost like the why found me, because by being involved in this kind of community, I realized that actually the other thing that I've been doing my whole career is great, and I've had success from it, but by being involved and exposed to this kind of community, I find that is now more my why. So my why has sort of changed, I think, as opportunities have arisen.
That's a really nice point. It's a really nice point. Whys do change. And I think for that reason, and it can be quite iterative. And I think for that reason, it's worth revisiting this quite regularly. So even small changes can, and I think back to the guy who was in the construction industry, and he knew his why for a really long time until things sort of changed in his context, and actually his why became A, clearer, and B, slightly different from what it was the year before.
Yeah, I mean, I would never have known 3 years ago that I would have enjoyed so much what I'm doing now, building a community, connecting people, being involved. And that has given me huge satisfaction and huge pleasure. But I didn't know that was a thing 3 years ago. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of evolved, and it evolved because an opportunity presented itself. So I think it's interesting. And as you say, I think it's worth revisiting time and time again, just to see where you're going, because things change and things flow.
Well, we do our Verosa strategy every year, and every year we reinvent our why. We go over it and we work out. One thing I should say is that the research shows that there's a direct link between, for small companies, an individual founder's why and the why of the company. Okay. So I think that's quite interesting. Your strategic why, your company's why, will at some level be connected to your personal why. Yeah. In the most successful companies. Sarah, I think, had her hand. Yes, hi Sarah, nice to see you.
Sarah.
Hi, lovely to see you, Beth. Thank you. You've almost kind of
We're having
answered
trouble
my question a little bit. Why? How do you communicate that to your team? Why? How can you make sure that you bring your team along with you? Because they may not have the same why. They may love their job, they may love the team, but connecting to them, having that passion, how would you advise that leaders look at that?
Really good question, Sarah, and thanks for raising it. So when we work with leaders who are leading big teams, we start on themselves. So we start with them organising and articulating, be very clear about what their personal why is. We then ask them to link it to the why of the organisation. So maybe often when people are experiencing real challenge and disconnect with an organisation they're working with, it's because their whys are at odds with each other. And actually sometimes there's a choice point about parting ways. So there's that to do first of all. But you're right, the people that perhaps work for them and to them and around them wouldn't necessarily share the same whys. So then there's a case of being able to share your why in a way that you can make understood to other people. Some of that is about modeling it, some of that's about living it. So they see that in what you're doing and the choices you're making and the action you're taking. So that's number one. The other is you can be really explicit. You can say, I know leaders who will take over teams and say, look, hi, I'm Beth, and look, as a leader, my sort of reason d'etre, my purpose is to make sure that I enable you to do the very best work that you can. Maybe that's their sort of starting opener, if that's their particular why. The other thing that happens at that point is that they start to be curious about the whys of the people they're leading. And that's really powerful, because then we're recognizing that we've got access to loads of other whys as well. And we can throw all those whys into the mix. And then the sum of the whole is worth more than the individual parts, which becomes really, really powerful in a team. So there's usually quite a lot of work to get there. And that I'm talking about quite mature teams at that point, who've done a lot of work together and really know each other. But then we make the space for everybody's why to be taken care of, with the leader's why sort of front and center, particularly in small businesses, because we're going to want you and your flavor to be pervasive everywhere. Does that sort of answer your question, Sarah?
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you. More work to do then.
Happy to have a chat if that's helpful. Joanna.
I just wanted to say thank you. I think for me, I'd gone through a process of finding my why over probably a 15-20 year period, because I initially went into what was for me the wrong career, but it did help shape my understanding of what I wanted to do differently. But I think, so I was kind of halfway there in terms of finding or having a why. But I think for me, the questions you've asked today around developing my why will come in a great deal of help, providing greater granularity for me when I'm trying to kind of like put my message out into the world about why I can help people and what I do differently. So thank you for that.
Oh, really nice. Thank you, Joanna. And really nice to hear, I guess, in a way, that sort of iteration of your why and the experience that you've had previously being able to shape your ultimate why, which is fantastic. And then recognizing that I can use this to go on and springboard into the future, which is kind of where I've got to with mine, that yeah, I know it now, but actually I still want to be using it to shape what happens next.
Yeah, and for me, the key point you said was, you said it was a little bit morbid about looking at how you wanted to be remembered. Well, I figured that out about 10 years ago and got a quote tattooed on myself to remind me that not to have regrets. And that's what very much drives me. And this is why I've ended up where I am now, is that I never wanted to have that regret of not being brave enough to make that transition into a different career. So perhaps you put it more nice than I do, but I think about on my deathbed, what would I regret the most? And that really does drive a lot of my decisions.
Wow, I can really hear it as well. I mean, I love the idea of getting a tattoo. Jen, can you just make a note on that? And we need tattoos. That's amazing, isn't it? Really amazing. And actually, we can hear that, Joanna, when you're talking, we can hear that level of passion, which I think when you think about people that are really nailing it, they tend to be the people that speak with that degree of passion. So it's really fascinating to hear that. Matt, you've got your hand up.
Yes, hi. It's a really good conversation. I've been trying to find my why for a long time, and I kind of like never never got my 100% on it that I found one. But I don't think that's my question today. My question today is like, when it comes to children and when we are young, we are being shaped into certain schemas on how we should behave, what our do's, what our don'ts. And that's pretty much preventing us when we're growing up to finding our why until we kind of grow up and realize, right, that's not me. That's not me. What they've been telling me all my life. It's something else. Do you think that's the reason why it's so difficult to find our why? Because we've been templated since the young age. And following question of that would be, how do I make my child to be aware of his why from a very young age, or what is the good age to get him into that groove?
Oh, what a lovely question. I suspect the fact that you're asking that question means that you're very well placed to be doing that with your children already. How fantastic. Yes, I do. I do think that we are definitely shaped by our experiences in our formative years, and you know, I'm not a psychologist, but child psychologists will tell you that that is absolutely true, and it does impact how easy and accessible it is for us to connect with our why. So those of us who have had parents who have encouraged us to be curious about the world and to ask questions of ourselves and who we are as people are probably going to find it an easier path than those of us who have been told and instructed and given templates for how to think. If you're interested in this kind of thing, there's a great book called The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read. It's really, really easily accessed. It's by, what's it on my shelf? I probably lent it to somebody. I'll find out who it's by. It's a really great read, and it's very, very easy for us as parents to access, and it helps you with your mindset around what your actions are doing to shape the why of your children. So I think that's an interesting one for any of us that are trying to bring up little people in today's world as well. Nice question.
That is a fantastic question, a very, very thoughtful one, Matt. As somebody who was born with a very strong sense of self, I always felt like my parents were giving me information that I could take under advisement, but ultimately I would decide on. And that has transmitted to my daughter. So I think I would have a hard time imposing any kind of, I have to kind of put stuff in front of her and she'll take it under advisement, and keep my fingers crossed she'll do it well.
Oh, well done, Shana. You found it. Yes, it's Philippa Perry. She's the wife of Grayson Perry, which I think is fascinating in itself. So she's a psychologist, and a very well renowned one, and useful to have a read of that if anyone's interested. Thank
you for that, Shana and Sarah. Beth, did you say you had an exercise that you?
Yeah, so it's simply it's just a sort of takeaway, really. If anyone wants it, I've got the slide from. Let me see if I can share it in the chat. The slide that had the questions on. All panelists. Now, will this let me do it? It won't let me throw it into the chat. It hasn't got the little file button. That's probably because I'm not host. Or I can show that slide again.
Yes, if you don't
show that up again. Yeah, why don't we do that?
We'll share all of the materials that you provide, Beth, with everyone in the members area.
Great. Let's go back to that one. This one. So you may have already started to do this during the actual sort of seminar itself, but if you haven't, maybe just take 5 minutes to answer some of those and see if anything sparks for you. See if there's anything that comes up for you that's new, or is a development of an idea. And I'd love to hear some of those from people, actually. It'd be really interesting to see what that brings out in you. In our workshops, Lorna, what we would typically do now is split up into breakout rooms and have conversations about this as well. So if you were thinking about this for a different audience, that's typically what we would do at this point. Interesting.
There's a buzzing going on. I'm not sure what that is.
Interesting to see that, Lorna. What I'm finding interesting is what makes me come alive is not congruent with what I would have previously said when I'm in my element. It's really interesting. And is there a story to tell in the gap between that? What is the story in that gap? So if everyone's had a chance to perhaps scribble a few notes down, I'll stop sharing and then just invite anybody that wants to, I mean, only share what you feel comfortable sharing, but I understand that you're all quite a close-knit group. So anything you feel you would want to share that came up for you. Lorna.
Happy to share it's just to echo what you said previously, that things change, don't they? So what you previously might have thought, and it depends on whether you're thinking about it as my business and my role within the business, or actually what really is personal to me. And so yeah, as I said, more work to be done, I think.
Yeah, and I think we often find that with clients and say, well, Beth, I can work out my why and I know the business why, but they're not the same. There's a gap. How am I going to close this gap? And there usually is a bit of a journey we can go on to connect those two things. Anyone else feel comfortable sharing? Sheila, coming alive. Most of my element go together. Being with like-minded people. Interesting. That's a great one. Sue.
The immediate thing, again, it's more personal, but it does extend into my work as well. The immediate thing that makes me come alive is my grandchildren, and I think that's because obviously the work that I do is a caring environment. It's giving, and like with the grandchildren and when I'm working, it gives me a purpose. And I don't know whether that's because of the life the life stage that I'm at the moment. Obviously, my children have flown the nest, so is it to do with empty nest syndrome? I don't know, but the caring side, obviously, that that carries over into my work. I like to be helping people to make the most of themselves, and to give them an environment where they can relax and find time for themselves, which I think, sort of looking back on my life, particularly when my children were younger, your needs are always at the bottom of the pile. There's the housework, there's the shopping, there's the husband to feed when he gets home from work, the children, they've got homework, school, extracurricular activities and all that going on. And then at the end of the day, you're lucky if you've got 5 minutes to yourself. So, what I like to think that I am offering to people is that little bit of get away, have some time for yourself. So, I think, I am a caring person. My first job was, I trained as a nurse. So I've always been in the caring profession. And I think, when I'm in my element is when I am offering a sort of service in inverted commas, but to others, and showing other people how they can make time for themselves and how important it is as well. I think when my children were younger, yes, everybody says, oh, you need to make time for yourself, you need to be doing this and you need to be doing that. And then you sort of think, well, I haven't got time to do that. Whereas now, I can appreciate that actually it is really important. And even more so now, with people that are homeschooling, and not getting out of the house, you're with your partner 24/7, it's the pressures are so much greater now than they were, 18 months ago, say. So, I think that's what makes me, that's what makes me come alive, and that's when I'm in my element, is when I am doing for other people. I'm not very good at looking after myself, as everybody will probably know. I'm really, really rubbish. Next week's mindset and motivation should be interesting, because I confess I don't always practice what I preach, but for me the important thing is giving to others. So that's what makes me come alive, and that's when I'm in my element.
You can really hear that. Thank you so much, Sue. That was I can really hear that coming through, that idea of caring for others and being of service. I know you sort of use that word carefully, but it's service sounded like a very strong part of your purpose. Yeah, really, really interesting. It's interesting you mentioned the grandkids as well. It's no accident that Verosa is named after my children. It is an integral part of my why. It's it's a corporate organization, but it's very grounded in the fact that I'm a human being. I'm a mother, ultimately. I identify very strongly with that. Yeah, really nicely. Thank you.
I think Sue also touched upon something that this current situation we're all living through has thrown up for a lot of people. A lot of reevaluation of lifestyle choices, work-life balances. Is there anything in the life cycle or the arc of a business where you tend to see problems occurring because people don't know their why and need to do a reevaluation? What sort of things should people be looking out for that a reevaluation is a good thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So crisis times. So that at the moment we are going through a difficult time. I was listening to the news this morning, and it said that we had a really tough year. I mean, there's no surprises there, economically speaking, last year, but they'd done, the Office for National Statistics actually done some careful work on this now, so there's data to back up what we all knew, and that is that economically speaking we're going through a bit of a crunchy period, and for the small businesses that's tough for us, that's tough on us. And the landscape has changed. And one thing that we find with businesses that don't have a very strong why is that they struggle in periods of flux and periods of change. So typically a business that's welded to its why will be able to pivot. So the why stays central, the why stays still. It's like the pin in the middle, and that's fine, but everything else can move around it. So I've got the why, but I can go this way. So for example, before the pandemic, we didn't have an offer in well-being training. It wasn't something that we'd ever been asked to do. The market didn't expect it from us, and it wasn't on our agenda. When Corona hit, my why stayed the same. Our why stayed the same. We're still bringing great leadership behaviours to leaders across the world, but actually leadership behaviours had to have a very clear focus on well-being, given the context that we were living in. So I think that life cycle that you're talking about there, Stuart, becomes very apparent in times of crisis. So if we've got to act at speed, and we've got to be quite dynamic as business owners sometimes, keeping hold of the why gives us something to anchor on. So I'm still doing this, but I'm doing it in a slightly different way. Lou, you wanted to come in?
I just wanted to touch on what you spoke about in your presentation with regard to, if you know your why, there is scientific studies with regard to levels of cortisol and stress.
Yeah.
And as small business owners, there's lots of stress going on. So it's really, I was really interested in that, what you said with regard to stress and cortisol, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is borne out by the figures. And again, if you're interested in reading the journals of psychology, it's worth having a look at some of those, because I think they're fascinating. But they do show very clearly that those organizations and business owners, so it was done on founders, this study was done on founders, so it's this group of people essentially that they did the study on. Slightly bigger organizations, I suspect, but they were founder organizations and owner operator led, and it showed that the employees of that organization had lower levels of cortisol as well, because they felt a confidence in the strategic direction of the business, which was borne out through the why. For me, there's a real close connection between my strategic direction and my why. So
very interesting.
Hands.
Sorry, Beth. Do you find that organizations that have a very clear why, both internally and for the leaders, are better at decision making?
Yes. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Not only the meta process of it, but actually the quality of the decision making. So the decision making happens quicker, is less cumbersome, generally is quite dynamic, and the quality of the outcome of the decisions. Also, they're also the organisations that are prepared to fail and fail fast and learn from it and get back up again. So
that they sped up the decision-making process with knowing their why obviously helps as a business opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and it also speaks to how we can empower people in our organisations, because at the point where you've put that flag in the sand and said this is why, then people can make decisions based on that frame of reference. So I think it's quite an important, slightly nuanced point to make, but it's an important point to make, because at that point people feel empowered to take decisions against the backdrop of the why. Whereas if I'm not sure why, then how can I make that decision in the first place? And do I feel empowered to make that decision? And if I do make that decision and it goes wrong, will I be the one left carrying the can? Well, actually, in organisations that have very strong sense of purpose, generally speaking, there's much less experience of blame culture, much less.
Cool. Joanna.
For me, this is what you're saying here is very relevant and pertinent for my work doing injury rehabilitation. So I'll often see people who are in a lot of pain. They have a condition called persistent pain, which is where you start off with an original injury and it just doesn't go away, and it can last for weeks, months, and even years. And often, because a lot of my degree was around the psychology of injury as well, and often there's a whole piece tied up in this, and the things you're saying for me today really do translate into my role. I often see myself as using the language you use today as empowering people to understand why it's happening, and then empowering them to make decisions that are right for them, that are not necessarily about pain management in the traditional sense of medication, but giving them a toolkit of options that will allow them to take control of their situation, but also sitting with them, allowing them to be heard and seen, and acknowledging their experience. So it's not just for me about a corporate perspective, it actually translates into in my case, my clients.
Really nice. Yeah, really nice. And I love that idea of sort of offering back the control, and it not looking the same for me as it might for somebody else. There's something in that as well. Fascinating, Joanna. I need to talk to you about my back, by the way, so get in touch.
We've had a message come in via chat from Dane, a fantastic self-awareness, more than anything, that he's referred to his why on what he does, and have used it several times over the last week as he's launched his business. And he had an epiphany last night on pricing. Dane, maybe you'd like to enlighten us a little more about that?
Yeah, well, we've just launched, and as with any business, when you launch, you very quickly look at what you do. I think that I've got quite a strong why. I've always, in my leadership roles, referred to the 5 whys. I can't remember the mayor, the New York mayor, when he asked himself the 5 whys. Spending, I don't know how many, $10 million on town hall renovations, all because of light bulbs. So I've always lived by that philosophy of ask yourself the why to get to the root cause. So I think I've got quite a strong why and brand. And with everything I do, I always ask myself that, and is that product right for the brand? Is that price right for the brand? Is that what I want to be about? Is that fitting to the brand and why we do what we do? So I've made quite a few changes in the first week, even if it's little tweaks on prices, or even if it's I've done a price on something which I did yesterday and I just felt wrong. No, that's not what I want to be. I'll drop it back down. That's not what we're about. Drop it back down.
Fascinating, Dave, and really interesting to hear. I mean, there's such a fantastic part of your journey. It's congratulations, by the way, you know, launching something in the middle of all this, and we'll be down for a coffee later. You know, fantastic. And I really heard that why, actually, the fact that you're prepared, and it's brave, right, to take those decisions. I've gone out into the world, I've said this is who I am, but actually that you said it didn't feel right. And that I think we have to trust as business owners, because that's about your why. And not be frightened to sometimes just shift a little bit, just to kind of get it right, and actually be prepared that we might need to shift, and it's okay to shift. And we definitely have. Jen tell you that we've shifted lots. Yeah, very best of luck to you, and I think keeping those whys really strong is going to serve you really, really well.
Thanks.
Sheila.
It's about when you're working with the bigger companies and on leadership. Do you follow Simon Sinek's philosophy that the only thing making you a leader is that you went first, and effectively to be a good leader, you've got to be looking after the guy to your left and the guy to your right, because you know that they'll be looking after you if you're to the left or the right, which has always fitted very well with me, because I'm in network marketing, which is teamwork, and it really doesn't matter who you are, where you are, we're in this together. And as the great Jim Rohn used to say, it's not you do it, it's let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely, yeah. Wholeheartedly our philosophy. Wholeheartedly. We in a lot of our leadership courses, we do a little thing on how leadership has changed over the decades, and we don't go back that far, but we sort of go back to a 1980 style leader. And there are a lot of 1980 style leaders still operating in today's corporate world, and by that I mean there's quite a lot of me, quite a lot of tell, quite a lot of do as I say, and do it because I told you, because I'm better, more highly paid, more senior. We work a lot on the philosophy of humble leadership, or servant leadership is sometimes what people hear. So we do a lot around that, and the teamwork ethic. I mean, the results that you get when people as a system, because we do a lot of systems work, but as a system subscribe to the same set of values, subscribe to the same why, and the same outcome. It really is very, very powerful. And the leader is clearly part of that. But as you say, he or she's a transient part of that, and will make place for somebody else coming in behind them, next to them, wherever that may be. So yeah, that's definitely how we work. Lovely point.
Collaboration is the name of the game. We say it at Signal. Nobody can build a business on their own. So it's all a part of that collaboration mentality, and what's the best outcome for everyone, not just what's the best outcome for me. Yeah, that is a key part of developing any business. So thank you for that, Sheila. Does anybody have any last points, want to raise their hand and ask a last question whilst we have Beth, because time is ending and passing, and we're going to be closing soon. So any last comments or questions? Lou, anything you'd like to round out the session with?
Wow, I have to say, it's such an inspiring talk, Beth. Incredible. And I really like the idea of constantly sort of almost revisiting your why and keeping that focus and making sure that it still aligns with what you think. You know, we sometimes lose it, I have to say. I'm sure everybody can agree, you know, you get bogged down in different things and suddenly you think, hang on, why am I doing the why? What, you know, and it's just taking that time. So you've really highlighted that today, and I really appreciate it. It was a very, very good talk, and thank you so much for coming.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've really enjoyed talking to everybody. It's been really nice seeing everyone. I've so supportive of what you guys are doing at Signal. I think well, I think Emma's on here somewhere, but said about you know, really supporting the lifeblood of the community, and that is Signal's why, and that comes across so very, very well. So
brilliant. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today, Beth. It's not every day you have a spy in your midst. Have you ever met James Bond?
No, I was James Bond.
Nice. I like that answer.
I could believe it as well. I could believe it. Thank you so much for your time today. You've been a pleasure and a very thought-provoking guest. A lot of presentations are very much about the doing, This is a lot about the thinking before you do, so it's good to get into that. Lou, we've had 2 fantastic guest speakers this month. Both presentations have been inspirational, so it's good to recap that next week. What are we doing at the Collab?
So we're having first I also wanted to say thank you to everybody coming today, and thank you for your honesty. It's really, you know, you get so much more out of a session like this when you bare your soul almost, and other people can relate to it. So again, thank you so much for all coming today and really participating in it. I love this format that we're doing now. I hope you're all enjoying it as well, in that, you know, where everybody can see people and everything. So yeah, next week we've got the collaboration session, where it is a meeting style. So it will be like this for the duration, and also in that we can have breakout rooms as well. We've got a couple of people coming along from the membership, as I mentioned before, just talking about tips and different things that you can do to affect your mindset and increase your motivation. So I'm really, really looking forward to that. So please all book on the Eventbrite, and I really look forward to seeing you all next Friday.
Absolutely. Okay, people, go and have a lovely weekend. I'm off to eat birthday cake pretty much from Saturday morning.
Nice.
Until I fall into a sugary coma. Thank you everybody for coming, and as Lou said, sharing. Obviously what anybody has shared here should really stay amongst us, and do connect with Beth and carry on and continue the conversation. All of the information will be available in the in your accounts. I will get the video up ASAP, and have a good weekend. Thank you very much for coming. If you're a guest, please do hang back. We'd love to hear about your business, and we'll speak to you, the rest of you, all very soon. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, take care. I love that we all still wave. I still love that.
Virtual hugs.
The virtual hugs, the wave. It's great. Take care, everybody.